How I embraced Islam after a plane crash. Hi, my name is Sarah. Today, I want to share with you a story that changed my life forever. This isn't just a tale of survival. It's a story about faith, hope, and the strength of the human spirit. 3 years ago, I survived a plane crash, and that event led me to Islam. If you're curious about how a single moment can turn your entire life upside down, stay with me until the end. I grew up in a traditional Catholic family in a small town in Ohio. My faith was a part of my life from childhood. We went to church every Sunday, celebrated Christmas and Easter, and I never questioned my beliefs. But life had a test in store for me, one that would make me rethink everything I believed in. It happened 3 years ago. I was flying to Chicago for a business meeting. The weather was perfect, and I never imagined that this flight would be my last. But an hour after takeoff, we hit severe turbulence. At first, it was just a little shaking. But within minutes, the plane started losing altitude rapidly. I could hear passengers screaming, the sound of the engines growing louder and louder. The pilot announced that we had a technical malfunction and were preparing for an emergency landing. I'll never forget that moment. I gripped the armrests and started praying. I begged God to save me, promising that I would change my life if I survived. But in that moment, I couldn't have imagined just how much that prayer would change me. The next thing I remember is the sound of sirens and the bright flash of lights. I woke up in a hospital. It turned out that our plane had crashed in a field near the airport. I was one of the few survivors. I spent several weeks in the hospital. Physically, I was recovering, but inside, I was in turmoil. I couldn't understand why I had survived. Was it just luck, or was it a sign from above? That's when I met Aisha. Aisha was the nurse who took care of me. She was always calm and smiling, even during the toughest moments. One day, I asked her where she found such strength. She replied, "It's my faith. Islam gives me peace." Aisha told me how Islam had helped her cope with the loss of her husband in a car accident. She shared a verse from the Quran that had been her anchor during that difficult time. Verily, with hardship comes ease. Verily, with hardship comes ease. Quran 94:5-6. Those words struck me deeply. Aisha explained that in Islam, belief in destiny and trust in Allah help you accept even the hardest trials. She told me how this verse had helped her find the strength to keep going instead of breaking down. A few months later, I embraced Islam. It wasn't an easy decision, especially considering my family and my surroundings. But I felt it was the right path for me. Islam gave me the peace I had been searching for all my life. My family, though not immediately, accepted my choice. There were many questions and doubts, but they could see how I had changed. I became calmer, more confident. My life gained a new sense of purpose. Today, I am happy. The plane crash became not just a test for me, but a gift. It led me to a faith that filled my life with light and hope. If you're going through tough times, remember, sometimes the darkest moments of our lives can be the beginning of something beautiful. How I embraced Islam and told my family about it. It was November 2013. I had not yet taken the Shahada, but I was already wearing the hijab. My family had no idea about my new journey. I stood at the bus stop, covered from head to toe, waiting for my bus. I would wear the hijab during my commute to school, but when my family picked me up after classes, I would take it off and hide it. But this time, I was late. My mom, dad, and brother were already waiting for me, and I had no choice but to stay in my hijab. Typically, most people's spiritual journeys begin with a desire to seek the truth or dissatisfaction with their existing beliefs. My path was completely different. I wasn't searching for religion or embarking on any spiritual quest. I was content with what I had. I spent time with my friends, enjoyed life, and thought about my future studies. Then, a new course appeared in my schedule, Traditions of the Middle East. The subject required me to immerse myself deeply in Middle Eastern lifestyle, culture, and religious perspectives. I began studying the Quran and learning about Islam. You could say I was unknowingly venturing further into a spiritual journey. After many months and after speaking with an imam, in December 2013, I decided to embrace Islam. I grew up in Cordova, Tennessee, a city in the southern United States. Where I'm from, you know your neighbors well, and they become like family. Kids play outside late into the night, and it's completely normal for 15-year-old girls to have boyfriends. My family consists of 4 people: my dad, mom, brother, and me. My mom has 8 siblings, and I have many aunts, uncles, and cousins. Let me return to the beginning of my story. Seeing me step off the bus in a hijab was a huge change. In the car, we had a typical conversation. We talked about school and everyday issues. With every word I spoke, I felt my hijab growing heavier and heavier. They saw it but remained silent. Finally, I asked, "Did you notice something different about me?" My dad chuckled to himself, my brother burst into laughter, and my mom looked me straight in the eyes and asked, "What have you done to my daughter?" I realized my family had chosen a strategy of patience, waiting for me to explain directly what was really happening to me. Soon after, our family organized a gathering where all our relatives came together for a picnic. Wearing the hijab felt heavier than ever. Before opening the door, I took a deep breath, knowing the interrogation was about to begin. I walked into a house full of loud music, dancing, strong drinks, and children playing. When they saw me, everyone froze. I felt resentment because of my appearance. Silence fell over the house. My relatives were uncomfortable, but they couldn't stay quiet. Each, in their own way, began asking me questions. I sat on the couch, trying to answer everything they threw at me. What about having 4 wives? Will you become a submissive wife? Are you going to join jihad? Are you always going to dress like this? A barrage of questions. I felt as if a fire had ignited inside me, and I was about to explode. Suddenly, my aunt asked, "I don't understand why, when people choose Islam, they accept a set of rules. Why can't you just choose love and simply love?" Then my grandfather said, "Just take a photo with your sister and tell your friends you were in the Middle East." Everyone in the room reacted with delight, except me. I felt so isolated from my family. I confessed to them that I was studying Islam. I smiled and continued answering their questions. It was exhausting. I finally exhaled when I was alone with my immediate family. They joked, and they were genuinely curious, but most importantly, they supported me. Whether they agreed with me or not, one thing was certain: they cared. That day, I realized that was all I needed from my family. The following month, I took my Shahada. Some might say my Iman wasn't strong enough because I delayed my declaration of faith. But I'll say this, I knew I would take the Shahada, and I only delayed it because my family's opinion mattered to me. I wouldn't have abandoned Islam, no matter how they reacted. But it was important for me to say those sacred words with a calm heart and soul, knowing my parents were at peace and not angry with me. After all, maintaining good relations with parents is also a teaching of Islam. How could I embrace the faith while violating one of its principles? You might expect me to end the story with a happy ending where everything is fine and all my relatives accepted me and my hijab. But no, that wouldn't be true. Each of my dozens of relatives reacted to my new life in their own way. But what I can say for sure is that they cared about me and my new way of life. They tried to understand me as much as possible, and I'm grateful for that. They'll have to accept me with my Islam if I truly mean something to them, because I'm still the same girl, just with a deeper understanding of the meaning of my life. Wearing the hijab, girls face many challenges in society, but the most burdensome is the reaction of those closest to you. Although it hasn't always been easy, I try to focus on the positive. The most important people to me are my family. We are mirrors for each other. Their reaction, love, and support still surprise me even a year later, especially because the response from my extended family remains the same. It's true that love doesn't conquer all, and that's reassuring. As my mom said, everyone has a personal relationship with the Almighty. Love people through Him.